Parshas Vayeitzei, we have the story of Yaakov going to the home of Lavan to find a wife. And there's a topic that comes up in the Parsha, the topic of Hasgacha pratis, that we don't always see on the surface how Hashem is putting all the pieces in place in the way that's best for us. But we have to trust and know that that's because we don't always see everything. We don't have all the pieces in front of us. Rav Chaim Zaitchik quotes a fascinating medrash in a Sefer Or Chadash. It's the Agadas Bereshis Nun Daled, that says that, as we find at the end of the Parsha, that Lavan is pursuing Yaakov Avinu, and Yaakov is afraid that Lavan's going to try to kill him, and Lavan says, "How could I try to kill you?" And the medrash says he has two reasons why he's afraid to kill Yaakov. One is because Hashem came to him in a dream the night before and said, "Don't you dare touch Yaakov." That's a good reason not to attack him. The other reason, he says the Medrash, is because he knew that Esav was going around with an army of 400 men. And if he kills Yaakov, then Esav has a pretext to kill him. Esav would say, it's a mitzvah to kill him. I'm the Go Hadam. Of course I should kill him. So not such a good idea to attack the brother of a guy who's going around with 400 men. So that's the other reason why he was afraid to attack Yaakov Avinu. So Chaim Zaitchik points out that it would seem on the surface like this is really a very dangerous and negative thing for Yaakov Avinu, that Yaakov has Esav going around with this whole army. But in truth, it's really saving him. It's really protecting him. It's really it's actually, when you look at it from the broader perspective that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has, it's actually a bracha and a good thing for him. And he points out we have to view that in general in life, that we don't always see why things are the best for us. We have to trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu that things are the best for us. The Chafetz Chaim, in his Sefer Al Torah, I believe it's Parshas HaZinu, talks about that there are times when you see one person's rich, one person's poor, and you wonder how come he's being punished and being poor, how come he's being rewarded and being rich, if people in the same basic neighborhood living so different lives. And he says, because we don't see the big picture. We don't know about what this guy was like 200 years ago in his previous life. You could have somebody, and maybe this is what they need in order to accomplish their tikkun. Maybe they were an obnoxious person in a previous life, and the neshama begged and pleaded, like HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please don't send me back, please don't let me fail again. Hashem said, all right, I'll send you back as somebody very poor and decrepit, and then you won't be a Baal Gaiva at all. You'll be a very humble person. And imagine people looking, they'd say, this person himself, he doesn't remember. He says, "Hey, how come I have such a bad lot?" And it's really HaKadosh Baruch Hu's bracha, it's really HaKadosh Baruch Hu's chesed to him. The Sefer Devar Yaakov on Chomer says an interesting vart. We find in the Parsha that the Pasuk says, Mani kolech mi bechi, ve'inayich mi dimak, yesh sachar u'lasech. The Medrash says that when Klal Yisrael was going to be punished because Menashe put a tselem in the Heichal. And the Avos Nimos went to plead their case of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to not destroy the Jewish people, and no one was successful until Rachel Imenu came and she said, Hashem, who's more merciful, me or you? Then I brought a tzara into my house, I brought a co-wife in. Yaakov worked for me, he wanted me, and I gave not only did I let my sister do it, I gave her the simanim. And how could you not be able to handle that they brought in a strange God? So Hashem says, you gave a good defense, this is a good defense to save the Jewish people. And this is the famous medrash, that Rachel had this schus to intercede because she gave the simanim. So this is something which came up later in the history of the Jewish people. The fact that she was buried on the road, the fact that this had happened, was tremendous schus for the Jewish people. The Devar Yaakov points out, it says in the pasuk, "Vayizkol kim esrocha v'yishmael v'yikim v'yiftach esrachma." Hashem remembered her and blessed her with children, and that's when she was zocheh to have Yosef. And Rashi brings that he was zocheh. The schus was that Hashem remembered that she'd given the simanim to her sister. So you just imagine if he had never given the simanim. I'm not sure if it's Malchut. He says, imagine if Yaakov she hadn't given the simanim and Yaakov would have married her. Then she would have remained barren. Yaakov would have needed, because this was her schus, so she would have remained barren. And Yaakov would have needed to take another wife. He anyways would have taken Leah, and she wouldn't have been zocheh to children. So this thing, which seemed to be something which is going to cause a tremendous loss, at the end of the day, it was her schus to be able to be a mother, to be able to be maimed shvatim. So just again, we see this idea that HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes things happen. They happen for a purpose. And even if we don't see on the surface why they're going to be a source of bracha, why they're good things for us, it ends up in the end that they end up being very good things. And sometimes we see, even in this world, we see why it ended up being the best thing for us, looking back a few months or a few years later. And sometimes we don't until we get upstairs and we see why it was really the best thing for us. And if we look back on our lives honestly, we should be able to see, I know I definitely see it in my life, different situations that came up, things that happened. At the time they were very upsetting. And you look back and you see that in fact that it had a broader purpose, it had a reason why it happened, and it ended up being tremendously l'tovaso. This is an important perspective that we need to keep in mind. Close with one idea I heard from my Rebbe, Rabbi Stern, once shared with me. It's an idea that he heard from his Rebbe, Rav Shmuel Birnbaum Zatzal. So Rav Shmuel asked about this chazal, that this is now Hashem remembers that she gave the siman, and that this is something which happened many, many years before. It's a little bit puzzling that suddenly now this is the schus that allows her to have a baby. Like, why suddenly now this is remembered, and now this is the schus. So Shmuel said a pshat that because now that Leah has just had this many children, and now she even had a daughter, so now there's already been 11 children born, including Dinah. Is a very difficult time at this point for Rachel to see this. And so this is a time when Rachel could potentially regret having given the simanim. And so it's now, when it's in this position where looking back, I made them big mistake. I gave up the simanim, I shouldn't have done that. For her not to see it at this point, now that's a tremendous chus for her, that she hasn't given up and changed her mind. And it's just the mussar of that there are times when we would have such a feeling and we would be premature and we would say, I see that it was for my bad, I regret this. So forgetting the fact that you would regret doing a mitzvah, you can chas v'shalom lose the schusim of the mitzvah. You're not changing the past, you're just losing the schusim, so not the best move. But also this idea that if a person is able to appreciate that, maybe I didn't see everything yet, but I shouldn't have regrets. I did the right thing. I made the right choice. And that was a tremendous, tremendous chus for her. That was her chus to have an opening of her womb and be able to have children. Yeah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu help us approach our challenges this way, appreciate everything He does as Latov, that appreciates all Gamzu Latova, and be able to keep strong in our Amunah and our Bitachon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Hashem build up our Ava for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Wishing you a wonderful Shabbos.